Welcome to IdeaGen TV. We are thrilled to have a book talk today with Dr. Rebecca White, Professor of Entrepreneurship, Director of Corporate Boards, and host of the N Factor podcast. Dr. White, welcome.
George, it is a pleasure to be here today. Thank you for having me.
Well, you know, Dr. White, it's very exciting to have you here today. I've had an opportunity to read through your book, and it's profound, and we'll be focused on that today. But before that, I'd like to let our global audience know a little bit about you. So Dr. White is the Walter Chair of Entrepreneurship, Professor of Entrepreneurship, and Director of the John P. Lowth Entrepreneurship Center at the University of Tampa. Dr. White received an MBA and a Ph.D. in strategic management from Virginia Tech University. Her primary research and teaching interests are in opportunity recognition and developing an entrepreneurial mindset. She has just released the book we mentioned. It's titled See, Do, Repeat. What an exciting moment. Tell us a little bit about what prompted you to write this book, Dr. White.
Well, that's a great question. Anybody that reads the book will know that it's a tribute to my mom. She was a huge influence on my life. She was an entrepreneur and had an entrepreneurial mindset long before we really had that word to attach to it or any frameworks to understand entrepreneurship. So in some ways, I think you and I have talked about the importance of our moms. This book was a tribute to her. But it's also a way that I can share what I've learned over the years as an educator and as an entrepreneur with more people, even beyond my students. So it's just really exciting to be able to share it again here today with your audience.
And you know, what's so exciting about it is understanding what that spark is for getting hooked on entrepreneurship. So you mentioned your mom, and that's incredible to hear. A truly empowered woman, certainly. And she was likely why you became involved in entrepreneurship.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, my path is a little different maybe than a lot of entrepreneurs because my parents believed very strongly in the power of education to transform. So I was blessed with the opportunity to, achieve several degrees. And I went into academics after working in her business for a number of years. But, and she actually wanted me to take over her business, but at the time I really wasn't ready. And so I went ahead, got my PhD and started teaching, but I found my way back to entrepreneurship with the opportunity to teach in that field. And it was just really at the time that I was doing this, which was the early 90s, it was really just becoming, a field of study in academic institutions. So it's been, it's been really fun to be a part of that journey of the discipline as well.
Well, and that's what I find so fascinating is the journey. You know, we've interviewed literally thousands of people on IdeaGen TV, and what you realize is that, you know, everyone has a different journey. They may end up in similar places, but it's all about that journey. That's what sparks that entrepreneurial spirit. It's the journey. When you arrive, whatever that arrival point is, well, then that journey's over in some ways, and you're not an entrepreneur anymore, right? And so I'd love to hear from you. What does your title mean? The title of the book, See, Do, Repeat. Why the title, and what does it mean?
So that's a really interesting story. So the book itself is based on years of study of entrepreneurship and really asking myself the question about what an entrepreneurship graduate from a university should really be able to see, do, and share with the world, just really understanding what that means, because it really goes beyond starting a business, this entrepreneurial mindset. Because like many others, I've applied this in organizations as well as, on my own. So, and many people do that. So this idea of what an entrepreneur really is able to do is what drove this book and the title of this book. And in the in the world of skill-based development and education, we have something we call competencies, and really being able to measure whether or not someone has developed certain competencies. So I became really interested in the idea of applying competencies to entrepreneurship. And this has been about a 10-year research project that started with a long list of competencies, which we were able to secure from hundreds of entrepreneurs, research with hundreds of entrepreneurs. And that long list, actually over time, we were able to cull that down to 3 competencies that all successful entrepreneurs have. And that's what this book is about: see, do, and repeat. And the title of the book, really, one of the more creative and challenging things about writing a book is coming up with a great title. So coming up with this title of See, Do, Repeat is kind of an interesting story, because the way that I teach entrepreneurship and the way that I teach opportunity recognition includes this idea that we have to gather a lot of material together and then allow our brain to process it, to connect the dots, to come up with creations and innovations. So, like my students, I try to walk the talk, and that title actually came to me when I was out running one day, because I had done tons of research, spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to share these 3 competencies in a very simple way with a very large audience. And, I gave my brain the opportunity to process what I was learning while I was out running, and came up with this idea of see, do, repeat. And the 3 competencies are aligned, as you might guess, with see, do, repeat. C refers to the ability to identify and recognize opportunities, to see the world through an opportunity lens, if you will. Do refers to the willingness to take action, because entrepreneurship doesn't happen without that. And repeat refers to the fact that virtually every entrepreneurial journey is going to have a wide variety of challenges along the way. And so successful entrepreneurs are able to execute past failure, which means, again, that persistence and that willingness to keep going. So see, do, repeat, the practice of entrepreneurship, is the title that came out of all of that.
That is so incredibly, for me personally and professionally, inspiring. I consider myself an entrepreneur as well. And I absolutely love the way you've broken it down, and the correlation between the see, do, repeat, and recognizing and looking for and understanding opportunities, seeking them and seeing them, and then taking action on those, and then continually repeating that process, because complacency is not a positive factor in entrepreneurship. In fact, it may be an anchor or a diametrically opposed, practice. When you're trying to be a successful entrepreneur, you have to be constantly, as I've seen and I've heard from you and read in your book, you have to be innovating. And that's really what this is all about, and looking for those opportunities and recognizing the opportunities that may be right in front of you. The pandemic has been a great opportunity for folks to reimagine operations. Healthcare is one great example. Telemedicine. We were all stuck in having to physically go to the doctor's office. Now, telemedicine. Now you can pull up your phone and see your doctor and do a lot of the things perhaps that you may have had to do in person through your phone, saving time, most importantly, saving, getting sick in the doctor's office or whatever it may be. So these efficiencies, you need to be looking for those. Something, Dr. White, like the pandemic, it's been a forcing function, a survival function for a lot of businesses, quite frankly, to be able to move forward despite truly unprecedented headwinds. And I think once we think about that, I'd like to ask you, how do you see these successful habits of entrepreneurs? Can you briefly outline a few of these key habits beyond, recognizing or looking for opportunities? What are the habits that successful entrepreneurs demonstrate in your experience?
Well, first of all, I'm glad you asked about habits, because this book is all about the practice of entrepreneurship, which really, in my mind, was an important word, that word practice, because entrepreneurship, like most everything in life, is not about perfection or arriving. It's about the journey, as you mentioned earlier. So it is about a practice, and it is about developing a way of life, really. I think it's important that it's really important to me that everybody understands that this book is not about a hack or about a quick fix. We live in a world where everybody's like, how can I get to that faster? How can I make this happen tomorrow? And there is always a sense of urgency among entrepreneurs. But the reality is, this mindset, this entrepreneurial mindset, is something that we live every day, and practice matters. And, it's really because your life is a sum of all of the choices you make every day. And, that's something I try to share with my students. It's something that I learned from my mom. And, it's not a matter of like being able to quick fix things. This is about a practice. So it's a journey, and it's a lot of hard work. But there are definitely things that I share in the book that can help you make real transformative changes in your life. And they're the things that I've used them in my own life. I've used them working with entrepreneurs. I've used them working with my students for many years, and they work. And, starting with recognizing opportunities, this has been an area that I've been most interested in, the ability to see opportunities. Some people, you may think that some people just naturally have that ability, but there is a process. There's a 5-step process for that. And there's criteria for something really, an idea being an opportunity. So I share those criteria in the book, and I share those steps. And, just to your question about what are a few of those, one of the most important things I think to keep in mind is that when it comes to opportunity recognition, the importance of curiosity and the importance of being aware of what's going on around you in the world. We spend a lot of time really focused in on a few things, maybe our social media or the things that show up in our email box. But the reality is there's a whole world going on around us, and sometimes we have to look for information. And so taking that step to be curious and interested in the world, and reading something that you don't normally read, maybe even reading something that disagrees with what you thought you knew, to just explore it and to open your mind to something a little bit different. And, I'll tell a quick story. When I talk about opportunities with my students, and I'm trying to define for them what opportunities mean, I go back to the etymology of the word opportunity, and it comes from the Latin phrase ob portu, or opportunus, which really referred back to the time when the captain and crew were waiting at port for the tide to rise in order to take their boat into port, back before ports were dredged. So there was a point of time that was opportunus, or ob portu, when the captain and the crew had to be ready, they had to be prepared, but when the wind was right, the tide was right, they could go to port. So the same thing is true if you want to recognize opportunities. You've got to pay attention to what's going on around you, and you've got to be willing to be ready for that. And when you are ready for that and you're paying attention, that process, that 5-step process, which I talk about in my book, you can apply that, and you're much more likely then to have ideas that could turn into opportunities. I know, I mean, there's many others in there, but just things to prepare yourself for failure and things to help you be more comfortable with taking action and focusing on learning. These are some of the things that I talk about in the book.